We are now on the third normative ethical theory. This is virtue ethics. Okay, let's begin. So, there you go. Virtue ethics for Aristotle, just like what I mentioned, is concerned more than anything else on the virtue of the human person. Just like in the game that we just had, no, in the activity that we had, no, what are the qualities of a particular moral agent that makes him a virtuous person? Because the understanding of Aristotle is quite simple. If you have a virtuous person, then this virtuous person will engage only in virtuous actions. Ah, nakukuha nyo? So I think it makes sense. No, when we were talking about the kind of person that you think, no, is worthy of being your partner, you were mentioning qualities that you feel were lasting and would therefore allow you to have a partner who will only engage in actions that are consistent with those characteristics. When somebody said, for example, mabait, respectful, no, those were uh, qualities which you wish to see in your partner because you think that a partner with those qualities will only do actions that are aligned with those particular characteristics. No? So for Aristotle, um, this kind of a virtue, this kind of framework is necessary when you talk about ethics, because at the end of the day, we have to be holistic. We take a look at the human person in his or her completion rather than his particular actions. So sabi ni Aristotle, in his main work, the title is Nicomachean Ethics. We may achieve these kind of framework when we think of the human person as a substantial entity. What does that mean? It means that if you're a substantial entity, that means that you have a fixed uh, makeup. And for Aristotle, these fixed makeup of the individual hinges on the individual's rationality. That all human beings are rational. And because all human beings are the same, uh, with the same nature, rational nature, then we all move towards the same thing. Okay? If all dogs are drawn towards the same thing and all cats are drawn towards the same thing, no, we said earlier, rodents, human beings are also drawn to the same thing. And this is a fulfilled life, or eudaimonia. Of course, according to scholars of Aristotle and of philosophy, ancient philosophy for that matter, there is no direct translation of the Greek word eudaimonia in English. Thus, the tendency to use and borrow the term happiness, because it is the closest to what eudaimonia actually purports to mean. Anong ibig sabihin ng eudaimonia? It is a fulfilled life. It is a state when all your desires have been, even if not actually, pwedeng symbolically achieved. What does that mean? A state when you no longer desire anything else because of your satisfaction or completion. And according to Aristotle, one only reaches eudaimonia if one lives the life that is proper to the individual. What does that mean? That means that for a human being to achieve eudaimonia, one must live excellently. Bakit po? Ano ba yung eudaimonia na yan? Well, according to Aristotle, as he began the book, no, book 1 of the Nicomachean Ethics, sabi niya, every art and every inquiry, and similarly, every act and purpose seems to aim at some good. We all want that good. No? And this good, according to him, ito yung mga qualities. Number 1, final. Just like what I mentioned, it's the last among all the things that we desire. Of course, in ordinary life, no, when someone asks you, what do you want now? You don't normally say eudaimonia. You say, I want tacos. I want a new pair of shoes. I want a new computer. I want to finish college. You don't normally say, I want eudaimonia. No, I want a fulfilled existence. But everything else that we desire are moving towards that final goal of a fulfilled existence. Why do you want a new pair of shoes? Why do you want a new clothes? Why do you want to finish college? Why do you want to eventually land a good job, no, that earns you a lot? Because you want uh, stable existence, an existence that is characterized um, by happiness, no? And according to Aristotle, that is what makes it final. Everything else that you desire in this life are only steps contributory to the attainment of the last desire, which is eudaimonia. And why is eudaimonia also self-sufficient? Because according to Aristotle, once you've attained eudaimonia, there is no more need to desire and work on anything else. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng self-sufficient. In the words of the great philosopher, no, whom you're probably familiar with, no, sabi niya, nasa yun ang lahat, no? 'Di ba? May kanta pa nga siya eh. Sabi niya, nasa iyo ng lahat. Pangit ang boses ko pag umaga. But the point is, no, that is what self-sufficiency means. Natawa si Trinity, our resident songbird. No? Self-sufficiency is the property that makes something enough on his or her own. Self-sufficient. Hindi na niya kailangan ng kahit ano pa. And once you have eudaimonia, that's it. Everything else that we desire in this lifetime, hindi pa yan eudaimonia. Once you finish your college degree, are you done? Sabi mo, nasa akin ang lahat. Right? Hindi pa, because you need to work. Right? You need to earn. Now, suppose you've been earning 500,000 a month. Nasa iyo na ba ang lahat? Hindi pa din. No? Because to some extent, you still have, sabi mo, sir, dami na puno na. Oo nga, no? Pwedeng you have a comfortable life, but you may not be happy in your married life. Right? You may not be happy in your family life. No? Some of your family may be sick. No? And no amount of money will be able to buy you good health for these family members. Wala pa sa iyo ang lahat. No? But when you have eudaimonia, nasa iyo na ang lahat. It is the end of all that man or human does. No, it is the exercise of vital faculties in accordance with perfect virtue. Yun yung sinasabi ko kanina. That in order to reach this eudaimonia, fulfilled happiness, one must have arete. And in Book 2 of the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle discusses what arete means. It means proper excellence, virtues. Yung term na arete, ibig sabihin talaga niyan, virtue. Excellence. What makes a dog excellent? Huh? What makes a dog excellent? No. Siguro, if you're a good dog, no one must be obedient, no, to the master, right? To be a good dog, you need to be tractable, no? Sometimes you don't like dogs that are hard to teach because if you're a dog, you should be able to be trained fairly easily. No? What makes a good pen? A good pen is one that writes smoothly, right? You don't want a pen that is quite irregular when it comes to its no, parang thickness, no? Or you don't want a pen that blots. No? You want a pen that writes smoothly. That is what makes an excellent pen. In the case of the human person, if the human person is at all to reach fulfillment, eudaimonia, one has to live first an excellent life fitting to a human person. And this fitting existence is characterized by arete, living virtuously. What makes a perfect human person? In effect, that's the question. Earlier, we were asking, what makes a perfect romantic partner for you? And you gave all of these qualifications. Of course, we were not able to exhaust all possible qualifications. But for Aristotle, we asked the same question. What makes a perfect human person? A virtuous human person. If not perfect, a virtuous human person. Excellent. Syempre, alam naman ni Aristotle, walang perfect. No? So, ang point niya, excellent. According to him, there are two kinds of excellences that is expected of a human person. One, intellectually virtuous. The intellectually virtuous human person has qualities that allow him to attain truth. Because human persons are rational persons, there is the importance of truth in one's life. One human person cannot be an excellent human person if he or she allows himself to be deluded by fake news. If a human person does not know how to distinguish between fact and opinion, that is a problem. Because how else can you maneuver life if you do not know truth? So intellectual virtues are important. What are these? In Greek, you have these intellectual virtues: episteme, knowledge of facts; techne, knowledge of skills, no? Like how to go about building your own house, how to go about repairing your broken fixtures. No, but the most important, according to Aristotle, is Sophia, wisdom. No? What does it mean to be truly, truly wise? To know what to do in particular situations. That's wisdom. Of course, these list of intellectual virtues has expanded ever since. No, now we have virtues such as honesty, open-mindedness, intellectual humility, and so on. These are virtues that do not make us good person per se, but they make us good persons because they allow us to reach for truth easy, easily. Huh? If you're not honest, then that's a problem. You shy away from truth. If you're not open-minded, you stick with your own beliefs. No, then truth will always be uh, hard to go by. No? The same with open-mindedness. No, I already mentioned open-mindedness. Intellectual humility. No, same with intellectual humility. Accepting when something is right and something is wrong. No, mahalaga yan. Okay? But I think the most commonly attributed virtues to Aristotle would be the second set. These are the moral virtues. And in ethics, this is more of our concern rather than the intellectual virtues. Moral virtues are those habits that are not simply implanted by nature. They are developed by doing and in accordance with reason. What are these moral virtues? These moral virtues are marks of our tempering the extremities in our day-to-day life. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Ha? Ibig sabihin nun, the human person is prone to always succumb to excellent, to number one, deficiency, and number two, excesses. Ha? Ano ibig sabihin nun? When you're invited in a buffet restaurant, the tendency is for you to really overeat. Tama ba? When you know that, no, normal lunch or normal dinner is 1 cup of rice, no, and probably uh, 3 spoonful of a meat viand, no, and 3 spoonful of vegetables, and yun, busog ka na. But in a buffet restaurant, the tendency is for you to eat more than your regular meal kasi gusto mong sulitin, no? So, that is an excess. On the other hand, people who want to lose their weight, no, after so many buffet visits, they engage in all of these diets, no? And ang tendency naman, deficient ka na with the macronutrients, right? Because you've been starving yourself, no? So, minsan hindi mo na-attain yung mga nutrients that your body truly needs. So, these two are excesses. And moral virtues are those that lie in the middle of these excesses. So, examples would be loyalty, justice. Yan, yung mga nasa slide. No? Temperance is one of the most important virtue. Courage is also an important virtue. And of course, wisdom. Wisdom is both a moral and an intellectual virtue. It leads you to truth, but it also leads you to what is good. No? Let us give an example. No? Courage. How is that a moral virtue? Sometimes, when somebody bullies you, the tendency is to be equally aggressive and fight back without thinking first of what is the right action. No? Ang tawag dyan, rashness. It is a form of excess. On the other hand, some of us, when we get bullied, feeling natin, naku, ayoko ng gulo dahil hindi naman ako mananalo rito pag makipaglaban. So we just turn our back. No? And sometimes turning your back is not necessarily the right thing to do. Because when you always turn your back, no, then the tendency is for the bully to think that he or she can actually bully you. So turning your back may be a sign of what we call cowardice, also a vice. No, but unlike the excess, no, rashness, cowardice is a deficiency in courage. So, what would be the middle ground between rashness and cowardice? Courage. Knowing when to fight and knowing when to retreat. Okay? So, moral virtues are of the same nature. They are the middle path between two extremes. And so the framework thus far goes something like this. Moral virtues are, in Greek, mesotes, the mean between two extremes. And you only find out the mean between two extremes if and when you use what Aristotle calls phronesis or logos. Phronesis means practical wisdom, that you deliberate in any given situation what is the right thing to do. No? And once you have attained some level of wisdom on what is the right thing to do, and you have achieved mesotes, which is the golden mean, the next stage, according to Aristotle, is for you to make it a habit. Or in Greek, hexis, a habit. Yan yung framework so far. So, let's take a look at the next part of the Nicomachean Ethics. In Book 2, according to Aristotle, one other way of testing your character is the use of pleasure and pain. What does this mean? According to Aristotle, if one is truly virtuous, then one takes pleasure in doing virtuous acts. But if one is experiencing pain in doing virtuous acts, then it is a sure sign that the act is not virtuous, that it is actually vicious. Bakit ka naman mahihirapan kung ang ginagawa mo tama, no? My usual example here would be telling the truth and honesty. A person who has been accustomed to telling lies takes pleasure in deceiving and telling lies. No? Once you have been accustomed to lying, wala nang bago sa iyo. Pag ikaw nagsisinungaling, tuntua ka pa na nakakauto ka ng ibang tao. That is what we mean by taking pleasure in doing a vicious act. No? So according to Aristotle, if you take pleasure in doing a vicious act, then you are vicious. But if you are experiencing pleasure in doing the right action, then that is a sign that you are really a virtuous person. No? Yung mga tao who feel so much pain in telling the truth, baka hindi ka kasi talaga truthful. Maybe you are really a dishonest person. So according to Aristotle, how do we become truly virtuous? Given the foregoing discussion, according to him, you really have to train your faculties. Because virtues are not like passions or powers that are given. Ano ba yung passions? Passions are our emotions. Anger, okay? What else? Love is a passion. No, you feel them instantaneously. You don't train yourself to love another person. No, kaya nga 'di ba pagka tinatanong tayo, what would you rather choose? The person who loves you or the person whom you love? Most people will still choose the person whom they love. Because while it is true that some people are okay with settling with whatever is there, no, but most people know that it's very difficult to train your passion. It's difficult to train yourself to love a person whom you do not love. No, it is difficult to train yourself to squash your anger. That's why psychologists would tell you you should not suppress your anger. When people get angry, they should not suppress it. What you should do instead is to learn tools to control your expression of anger. No? Hindi ba halimbawa yung mga abusive parents, 'di ba binubugbog yung mga anak because they don't know how to uh, control, how to express their anger. Hindi mo mapipigilan yung love at anger. For example, when you see someone who is attractive to you, you cannot help but adore that person because love, attraction cannot be controlled. They are passions. No? But you can control how you will express them. Okay? In the same manner, virtues are trained faculties. They're not like passions or powers that are given. No? Kasi nandyan na yan eh. Wala ka nang magagawa. But virtues are not like that. Virtues may be trained. And they are determined by your reason. No? They are trained after you have realized that they are the right thing to do. Okay? Yun ang ibig sabihin ng virtue. Okay? So, how do you determine what virtues to train yourself in? According to Aristotle, you need to be trained to find the mean between the excess and the deficiency. Just like the example earlier about courage as a mean between rashness and cowardice. One can always try to locate the mean between two extremes. For example, in terms of generosity, no? If you are too generous, hindi na generosity yan. Ang tawag na dyan ay extravagance. Every time you go out with your friends will say, Oh, Trinity, libre mo kami. No? Every effing time, libre. No? At ito namang isang to, hindi niya rin alam how to control. Oh, sige, libre, libre. Credit card. Until such a time that the person no longer has the means to pay his or her credit card bills kasi nga masyadong extravagant. Di ba? Too much generosity. On the other hand, may mga tao naman, kahit maraming pera, sila pa yung unang magsasabing libre, libre. Nakakahiya, di ba? Ang tawag dyan, stinginess, kuripot, no? Tapos pag sabihin mo, libre mo naman kami, ay, wala akong kapera-pera eh. No? Tapos malalaman mo, siya palang pinakamayaman sa inyo. Wala raw siyang kapera-pera. Stinginess. What we want is a generous person. Di ba? I don't think that I need to even defend the position that we want always the generous person. No? The generous person is the minsan gusto natin yung ganun no, yung kaibigan na walang ginawa kundi libre tayo. Pero to some extent, hindi ka na rin matutuwa eh. If palagi na lang na ililibre ka nitong taong to, because to some extent you feel that you are not given a chance to also replicate the generosity of the other person. Gusto mo naman, pag minsan naman, kahit na hindi kasing mahal ng nililibre niya, may pakita mo naman din na malilibre mo siya. No? At makapagbigay ka din. No? That is what we mean by generosity. The mean between two extremes. Now, in most cases, there is always a mean between two extremes. And that is what is virtuous. Sabi nga natin, even with cell phones, once these cell phone companies release their new models, there usually is a mid-range. The top of the line phone is always the most expensive. There is the basic model for that phone. There's always the mid-range. No? Those who want the benefit, some of the benefits of the top tier model, pero abot kaya. No? Sabi nga. No? So mid-range. And the mid-range is, unlike cell phones, it's not fixed. No? When it comes to cell phones, when you say mid-range phone, palaging fixed yan eh. No? So po pwede the mid-range phone shares the memory of the high end but does not share the same processor as the high end. Yung processor niya pwedeng dun sa low end. Pwedeng yung camera niya pang high end pero yung kanyang halimbawa screen hindi pang high end. May mga fixed properties. But when it comes to virtuous class, no, the virtuous person determines what is the mean of for him or for her. No, that is the point of Aristotle. No? It is not fixed. Ibig sabihin, what is mean for you may not necessarily be mean for me. Think about the virtue of ano bang virtue to? Kasi the excess is gluttony, no? And the deficiency is what is the deficiency? When you're a glutton, so you eat a lot, no? There must be some word for the deficiency, which is you don't even eat anything. But the mean, which is to eat just the right amount, no? And that is something that depends from one person to the next. No, if I, for example, ask you all out, no, sabi ka na mag-buffet tayo. Konti lang naman kayo sa klase na to. No? What is mean for Isa may not necessarily be what is mean for Ron, even if they're friends. No? Sabi ko, ba si Isa na 3 plato So hindi naman sobrang takaw, hindi nakalima, pero hindi rin naman ako nalugi na binayaran ko, no, na baka magbayad ako ng buffet pala. 1 plato lang, busog na si Isa. Nakakainis naman, hindi sulit, di ba? So ang meaning siguro kay Isa, sakto na sa kanya, busog na siya, enough na, hindi naman siya sobra-sobrang maimpatsyo, 3 plato, 3 balik sa buffet table. Aba si Ron, pwedeng makalima. Pero sabi ni Ron, pero sir, ito rin yung mean ko. Hindi pa ako sobrang busog na busog. Tama lang. In other words, the mean is not the same for all of us. And the mean has to be determined by practical reason. Ito yun. In Book 2, Aristotle talks about phronesis or practical wisdom or practical judgment. According to Aristotle, phronesis is the habit of making the right decision and taking the right actions in context. In fact, the way that Aristotle puts it, in the translated Nicomachean Ethics, in right amounts, right time, right situation. Okay? In other words, in context. Okay? So, for example, a virtuous person knows that what he or she can demand another friend may be different from what he or she can demand from yet another. No? Halimbawa, kasama ko kayo, tapos mag-aya akong kumain. Alam ko na lahat kayo well-off. Then, I think my practical wisdom should dictate that I don't invite you to eat in carinderias. Kasi baka mamaya, hindi kayo comfortable. Baka mamaya mapipilitan lang kayo, pero as a matter of fact, it will not be a pleasurable dining experience if I just ask you to eat with me in a local karinderya. Kasi hindi kayo sanay. Hindi ba? So, where will I invite you? Kung saan kayo sanay. No? So, pwede siguro tayong kakain kung hindi naman sobrang fancy because it's just a class having lunch together. We can probably eat in regular dining places, no? That we can probably all enjoy. Halimbawa, mag-Italianis tayo. No? So, at least, siguro for a student who is from a well-off family, having a lunch in Italianis might be a good experience. No, it's not too much because you're still not earning, and it's also not not too uncomfortable, no, for you. However, if I'm going to have lunch with another class and the members of the class are really not well off and they come from low income families, then inviting them over to have lunch with me in Italianis might be an excess. Hindi ba? So I need to invite them to have lunch with me in a place where they can probably afford and be comfortable dining in. No? So sila siguro invite ko sa pwedeng sa ano nga ba itong masarap na kainan na mura, yung mga paresan, no? Yan ang masarap, hindi ba? Pares Retiro, ganyan. Hindi ba? A place that my students from low income families might actually enjoy, dining in. So, ano yung point? That phronesis should allow us to make intelligent moral decisions that are anchored on context. And once we have attained that, according to Aristotle, then the next step is to make it a habit. Once you have discovered the golden mean, between two extremes, depending on context, then make it a habit. No? Kasi habits can either be good or bad. But once you have already found the golden mean and you make it a habit, then you are on your road to attaining virtues. For example, when you wake up every morning, what do you do next? No, do you just snooze your alarm clock and then you snuggle, you continue to snuggle? Or once you hear your alarm clock, you jump out of bed? Depende sa habit. No? Depende kung saan kayo nasanay. In the same manner, the same is true when it comes to virtues. Are you the kind of person has been used to being bossed around? Halimbawa, sabihin ng mga kaklase mo, Luchi, ikaw magsulat nito. Titingnan na lang namin o kami na lang magpiprint. Ikaw naman, you never say no. Sige. No? It becomes a habit. No? The more that you do that over and over again, people get used to bossing around and pushing you, to do things that they want you to do. Kasi hindi ka nagrereklamo. No? If you are always in a friendship, halimbawa, that you feel is simply dependent on on being used, no, by your other peers, no? Pag kailangan nila ng gagawa ng homework nila, maalala ka nila, Mika, pakigawa naman tong essay ko. Mika, pakitulungan naman ako dito sa problem set ko. Mika, Mika, kapag naaalala ka nila, no? Dahil may homework. Pero pag wala, di ka nila naaalala. Bad habit. But if you are habitually predisposed, no? Talagang hindi ka magiging virtuous. And hindi sila magiging virtuous, no? To be virtuous, one must train oneself to do what one has already determined using phronesis to be the mean. Huh? Hindi ba all diets are like that? No? You find the right diet for you depending on your body and you stick with that diet. No? People like me who find it so hard to stick with the diet, dito pumapalpak. No? Alam mo naman yung tamang diet, but pumapalpak ka sa habit formation. No? And according to Aristotle, this is really possible because when your habit, hexis, has been undermined by what he calls in Greek akrasia. Akrasia in Greek means, akrasia, the Greek word in English means weakness of the will, incontinence. No, many of us, we know what to do, we know when to do them, but oftentimes we fall under the pressure of akrasia, weakness of the will. Sabi ni Ron, hindi ko nababalikan sir yung ex ko. Kasi ayoko na talaga, no? But sometimes, may days, no, maaalala ni Ron, tapos biglang i-text pa siya, "Hi Ron, kumusta ka?" You have a word for this, no? As Gen Zs, no? Marupok, right? Cheese curls, right? Marupok, no? So sasabihin pagka kinamusta si Ron, ay okay naman, buti nakaalala ka. No, maya-maya kalandian na naman kahit na ilang beses ka ng loko paulit-ulit. Right? Kasi mahina tayo. In the same way, okay, diet ako, diet. May nakita sa commercial, wow, parang sarap ng bagong burger. O order, grab, patay. Tayo. Or for example, you've already determined the mean. Sabi mo, okay, I will not be OA. The deadline of the paper is 2 months from now. Before OA ka, 2 months pa, uunahin mo talagang gawin. No? Sobra ka naman. On the other end of the spectrum, there are those who always procrastinate. Deadline bukas, ngayon lang gagawin. So sabi mo, ano ba talagang mean? When I was in elementary, I was OA because I was, a top student. Now that I'm in college, I always procrastinate. What is the golden mean? Maybe I should start working on my paper 10 days before submission. That's the golden mean. Not too early, not too late. Kaya lang, no, while making the paper, your friends called you up. Tara, Dana, inom. No? A shot puno. Right? So ikaw naman, 10 days pa naman, o sige na nga. No? Tapos sabi nila, the following day, Dana, there's a new series about the Nazis. Di ba you like this particular theme? No? So ikaw naman, oo, kaya lang I have a paper in Ethics 1 eh. Sus, 9 days pa naman. O sige na nga. No? You are giving into the weakness of the will. And that is normal because we are weak. According to Aristotle, that's why you need India. India is the Greek word which means diyan pala nagmula yung kanta ng All You Need Is Love. Alam niyo yung kanta na yon, Trinity? All you need is love. Alam yun. Are you too young to know that song? No? I-google mo mamaya. No? All you need is love. No? Because all you need is love. Kasi sabi nila, particularly ni Aristotle, once you find a good friend, a friend who will be there with you through ups and downs, who really is an authentic friend, not just for use, not just for pleasure, but a friend who really looks after your own good. then that friend will always mirror you. Mirror you, will show you what it really is happening. Alam mo, Jana, mali na yung ginagawa mo. Diet ka, pero tuwing aalayain ka namin kumain, G ka ng G. No, pwede ka namang sumama sa amin eh. But you order only salad. No, huwag ka nang umorder ng iced tea because that's sugary. Pero ikaw, pagka pinashot ka din. No, paano ka papayat? That's Akrasia, Jana. No? A good friend always reminds you and takes you back to the track. And once you have that friend and you avoid Akrasia, then hopefully, according to Aristotle, you can attain hedone or hedastai or a truly, truly happy and pleasurable life. Okay? So yan ang ethical framework ni Aristotle. That in order to live a good life, you need to develop good virtues. And in relation to cases and the moral dilemmas that you encounter each day, according to Aristotle, once you have developed the virtues, you will automatically know how to act given circumstance.